Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Mm-hmm. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Buckeye Blitz podcast. I'm your host, Chad Stryker. Thanks for joining today, taking a little time out of your day to hear a little more about Buckeye football and some of the things that are going on in Ohio State football world. If you could take a couple seconds, hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm with YouTube. It does help me a lot. I've seen that uptick, so thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks for listening again. I appreciate it. So, spring practice is Tuesday, so we are now only 4 days away from actual practice and actual football. And we are about, for you Ohio State folks that are enrolled, 8 days away from your spring break. So enjoy that. And the spring game is rapidly approaching as well, April 15th. So we are making our way to the first game of the season. And then following that, it'll be Indiana on September 2nd. So right now, winter conditioning is wrapping up. I think this is the last day for it, and so those Buckeye players are getting ready to enjoy a nice little 2 day practice this week. So Tuesday, Thursday, and then spring break. So as promised, I will dive into the NIL question that came in on the mailbag, but I wanted to take a look at next year's schedule. So, uh, you know, that's actually one of the submissions that I've had on my website was, I predicted the Buckeyes to go 12-0 next year, last year, and we did not do that. So, what are my predictions this year? So we'll walk through those games really quickly. And so Ohio State at Indiana on September 2nd. I think they win that game. No slight to Indiana. Opening up with a Big Ten game. They did it a few years ago against Minnesota, and then they did it a couple years ago against Indiana. And that it's a different level of competition than playing like an FCS school or something like that. However, Indiana is trying to turn it around, and I think I have a lot of respect for Tom Allen and who Tom Allen is and what he brings and his toughness. But I think Ohio State just has too much talent to really have much of a game there. I think they'll win it going away towards the end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter. Um, Next September 9th, Youngstown State. I have a lot of appreciation for YSU, especially since Jim Tressel coached there, and they gave us Jim Tressel. But I expect Ohio State to win that going away. Western Kentucky, same. I expect Ohio State to win that going away, and if we're not playing our reserves midway through the third quarter, I'm going to have some questions. Ohio State at Notre Dame on September 23rd. I think even though Notre Dame brought in a new quarterback, and I think that'll help. I just have to ask like who he's going to throw to. They have they have some talent, but I don't think they have the amount of playmakers that Ohio State does. If our offensive line holds up, I think Ohio State wins that. By 2 scores. Ohio State or Maryland at Ohio State on October 7th. Maryland gave us a game last year. They have a lot of talent at the skill positions. And I do think that Ohio State being at home helps, and I think they win that one by 2 scores again. And on October 14th, Ohio State goes to Purdue. Um, I hate playing Purdue. I just do. They have our number for some reason, especially there. I do think Ohio State wins that game. I think it's closer than people would expect, but I think Ohio State does come out ahead. Penn State comes to Ohio State, the newly tooled quarterback position under Drew Aller. That looks like his first real test on the road in the horseshoe against Ohio State. Um, he's a talented young kid. They have a lot of talent on offense and defense. Um, I think that's going to be a really close game. I think it's a 4-point game, but I think Ohio State wins that one. Ohio State at Wisconsin. Luke Fickell will have Wisconsin ready to play, But I think, if we can stop the run game, which is kind of the mantra with Wisconsin, and hold them, under 150 yards rushing total. That includes the quarterback runs. Ohio State wins that one. Ohio State and Rutgers, I think we win that one going away. Michigan State at Ohio State, I think we win that one going away. Michigan State, even though they brought in some transfers, that team has been a wreck since Kenneth Walker left. Minnesota at Ohio State. Again, I really think that Minnesota has a good young team. They had a lot of 50-year and 60-year seniors last year. A lot of those guys have moved on. I think Ohio State wins that one by 2 scores. And then in the big house, November 25th, Ohio State and that team up north in the rivalry game. Ohio State's lost 2 in a row. I think Ohio State's going to go up there and win by 3 scores. I think that they're pissed. I think that they have Ryan Day will have figured out that he has to run the quarterback, and I think the team will have a chip on their shoulder. And I liken this to the year that Jim Tressel went up there with Troy Smith and beat those guys. So watch out. And that's all I have to say for right now. I think Ohio State does come through the season unscathed. I think that the Michigan game will be close early, but I think Ohio State will pull away late. Michigan lost a lot on defense this past year. And I know Blake Corum's back. I know McCarthy's back. I know Donovan Edwards is back. But unless they can ground and pound and keep Ohio State's offense off the field, I don't see how they stop us. And so that's that. And that'll lead us to Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship game. And my pick right now is going to be kind of a sneaky one, but I think it's Minnesota. I think Minnesota wins, and it's Ohio State and Minnesota in the Big Ten Championship game. So those are my thoughts on the season as of right now. Obviously, that can change. Things can change. Injuries can happen. And we'll take a look again right before the season kicks off at how we're feeling about each position and each position group, and what I think the season will end up looking like from there. Next, my mailbag question that I avoided on Tuesday. Why am I so adamant about the NIL and the foundation and the O Foundation? And that's, our Buckeye Friday topic, really. I've done an entire show about NIL, the NIL versus NFL, and kind of what that looks like, and an additional show when some very specific members of the Ohio State media who toe the company line, so to speak, for Gene Smith, bashed some different NIL collectives and the people that run them, even though they're volunteering, and it really bothered me. I'm passionate and adamant about the NIL collectives because of all of the reasons I mentioned in my earlier podcast, but I'm going to just add some points here. Firstly, I worked in college, multiple jobs, took out student loans to attend college. I was a student athlete. It was difficult to balance everything. Study table, workouts, practice, tough to do. And I only did it for 2 years. So now I realize many student athletes receive scholarships and meal vouchers, and I had scholarships from my books. However, in Division I, Power 5 football, like Ohio State, it's year-round. So even if there's winter conditioning, spring ball, summer conditioning, fall camp, the season, it never stops. So it is a year-round commitment. So that is part of the reason I'm so big on the NIL and helping some of these folks. I believe that there is a cap on how many hours you can even work as a student athlete. At least there was. I think it was 7 hours back in the day. I realize now NIL, with NIL, guys like Stroud and Marv and others get endorsements from local places in Columbus for car dealerships and bigger places like Express. And then I know I saw Marv just got one for the Monarch machine. If you don't know what that is, it throws passes and a variety of other things, and Marv's always working out on it and using it to get better. Now, where NIL helps and collectives help are to disperse funds to like the other 80 players that aren't like the getting the big endorsement deals, and that is incredibly helpful because our long snapper isn't going to get an NIL deal with Subway where he's hiking a sandwich between his legs for our kicker to kick through the uprights or something like that. Incoming freshmen also want to know, kind of what's actually on the table. We saw some of the mess that happened with Florida this year and Miami. And Ohio State's big on making sure that like these kids are playing, but I've seen the foundation, especially with this group of incoming freshmen, help negotiate NIL deals for a lot of them, and like that makes a difference, and they know what they're going to be getting when they arrive. The O Foundation and the Foundation are the biggest contributors to Buckeye football NIL deals. I appreciate the cohesion because they work with a lot of the other student athletes that probably get glossed over a little bit. Well, not probably. They do get glossed over when it comes to football and basketball at Ohio State. And I think that's great that they're focusing on those other things. My passion comes really out of support for the football team because I want to continue to win. I like winning. I like the trajectory Ohio State football's been on, and NIL is going to be part of that. And personally, I'd rather spend my money and make a donation to a nonprofit organization, and not waste it on my Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I love Dunkin' Donuts coffee. If I haven't mentioned it, or I also really enjoy McDonald's French fries or something like that. I'd rather save that money and donate it to keep the foundation doing well for Ohio State football and in the mix for NIL packages. I believe it was Dave Biddle recently that did some math. It was either him or Jeremy Birmingham that I was watching, and they said if the 100,000 people who regularly fill the shoe on Saturdays in the fall would donate $10 a month in recurring donation, that ends up being $12 million a year just from those folks, which would mean that's without any of the big boosters, the big players, the car dealerships, the expresses, the whatever else in Columbus. That is just the average Joe everyday fan dropping $10 every month. To me, that makes sense. And I know that these, there's a lot of people who say, well, these college kids needed to work and earn it and da 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 da. Well, fine, but and that's fine if you're okay with us slipping back and not getting the top 5 prospects, like we saw with everybody was mad about Keon Keeley and Uyunglele and David Wilson and these kids that like last second pulled the string out from under Ohio State and went somewhere else with bigger NIL packages. That will continue to happen if we don't have it together. So say what you want about paying college kids to play football. Feel how you want, that's fine. And I know there's a lot of these folks that say, I had to walk uphill both ways to campus and I worked 700 hours a week. And all that's fine, but NIL is not leaving. It's here to stay. So if you don't like it, that great, good for you. But Billy Beane once said, adapt or die. So that's where we are. We can either adapt or die. If you don't want to give your money, cool, that's fine. But like, don't be mad about it. Don't be upset about it. There are those of us who do believe in this and want it to be successful. So I hope that I'm not trying to convince anybody because everybody always ends up entrenched in their original view anyway. It's much like politics. Either you're on board or you're not. And maybe over time more and more people will get on board, and the more this becomes a average thing that's happening all the time and it's just part of college athletics. But truly, I hope you will just take a look at the foundation and the O Foundation. They recently merged to form a large collective. or the cohesion. If your son plays tennis like my son plays tennis, and you want to do something for the tennis team, that would be the organization to go with. But honest to goodness, this NIL is not going anywhere. So, and if you choose not to be a part of it or not to donate, more power to you. I understand and accept that too. Like, we all have our things. This is just something that I think the more people get behind and the more people support, the better off Ohio State athletics is going to be, especially until Gene Smith is willing to accept that the booster money that they're getting for all of Ohio State athletics probably needs to be divided up from that booster to NIL and to the athletic department, especially since the Cohesion Foundation is working with other sports within Ohio State, not just football and basketball. That's a whole nother topic. But thank you for taking some time and listening today. I hope that answered your question. Rich was the gentleman who submitted that question. I hope that helps. Part of the reason I'm passionate about it, I just love to win, and I want to keep winning, and NIL is part of that, and NIL money is part of that. So I'm excited for next Tuesday, an actual practice report. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you again for listening. If you could, hit that like button. Until Tuesday, y'all, thanks for listening. See ya, and go Bucks.